that's kind of the way I looked at it. I just took action. I think a lot of us pause and we don't take the next step because we're worried about what could happen. And if I would have did that, maybe there was a law against it. I'm not sure. Maybe there was a city ordinance against it. I'm not sure, but it never came up. And I was able to train in the park, and open my first location before anything came up out of it.
That is Robby Marlow this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hey everybody, how's it going? How are you? How is the family, kids, wife, girlfriend, training? How's everything going? Really, how is everything going? My name is Ian, and this is my podcast. And each week, I have the opportunity to sit down with some really, really amazing people who are in one way or another doing it for themselves. And my guest this week, Robby Marlow, he is no different. But right from the top, before we get into Robby, I just wanted to mention something. I have mentioned it on here before, and it is always located in the show notes, but I just wanted to let you know that I do have a Patreon page that it was started for this podcast. And I started this because when I started the podcast, I wasn't really sure where this would go and how far it would go and how long I would stick with it. My goal was to stick with it for 1 year, and we are coming up very, very close to that 1 year mark. I will be hitting 1 year here in January, which is very exciting. But what I didn't realize was some of the costs associated with having a podcast, doing a podcast, and putting this on week after week. And so, there's things that I didn't even know that I would need equipment-wise, software-wise, bandwidth-wise, and things like that. So I have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/do-it-for-yourself. It's very easy to find. It's always located in the show notes as well. So if you go to patreon.com/do-it-for-yourself, you have the option to make a monetary donation, either one time flat out or a monthly donation. That money will always be reinvested into the show, whether it be for new equipment, upgrading software, upgrading bandwidth, whatever the case may be. So if you can, or if you have already gone and checked out the page, thank you very much. I really appreciate your support. And at the end of the show, I always give you other ways that you can support the show if you are not financially able to support through the Patreon page. Now, let's get to Robby. Robby Marlow is the CEO or the CFO of the Delta Life franchise. And this is a women's only gym that they started and have since grown. And they have grown it very rapidly, and it is largely in part due to what Robby has put into this company and this franchise, and also some of the moves that he's made. One of which being he literally picked up and moved his entire family to Florida on a whim because his business mentor said, Robby, if you're going to take this seriously and you really want to take this to the next level, you need to move to Florida. And he said, all right, done. And he went for it. And those are the kind of decisions that Robby made all through while he was, building this company, starting this company. I said that backwards. Starting this company and then building this company. And even still to today while he is growing this company. So it's really interesting to hear yet another story of someone who started something on the side while they were still working a full-time job, and what it took and what the thought process was like before they took that amazing leap from working a full-time job to then taking on this new opportunity fully. So I won't take anything else away from Robby. I will let him do the rest of the storytelling, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Robby Marlow. I just want to say thanks so much for reaching out and through the podcast guest thing there, which is something that's very interesting. I'm not even really sure how I stumbled upon that, but when I started going through some of the things and, some of the people who came up, Robby, I saw yours, and, the first line in your thing was about your successful weight loss. And so obviously that really hits close to home for me, given my story. But then I continued reading on about how you've launched a successful fitness franchise, and that was started from really nothing and kind of started from what seems like out of a passion, but I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that. But as I read through your bio that you had submitted, I knew that I definitely wanted to get connected with you and chat a little bit about what you have going on and kind of what you've been up to over the last, couple years here. So thanks so much for coming on and sitting down with me. And I'm really looking forward to jumping into your story a little bit more.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
So you're down in Texas. I'm pretty jealous. I know I've been following actually a couple people on social media. They said it's cold in Texas right now. So what does cold in Texas actually mean for you guys?
They must be up north a little of me a little bit, because I'm in Houston. And
Okay.
It's a little cold. It's about 50 degrees out here right now, but cold in Texas, it kind of varies. We usually have a warm winter all the way up to January, especially down here, a little southern Texas. And it gets below 50 degrees. It's cold to me. So
I wish that was the case. I think that our high for today is somewhere in the 40s here on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So,
it's good until June and July, August, when it's 100 degrees down here. Then you wish it was. Then you say, man, I wish I had some better weather.
Yeah, I hear you. It's you get that nice time right now where it's in the 50s, 60s, but then come that Texas summer, man. Oh, I can't even imagine how because that is hot. It's hot.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a different heat. But you get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you were just telling me that you finished the Waco 70.3. That was your very first ever triathlon, and you kind of just jumped right in with 2 feet there in the triathlon world. But you haven't always been into fitness. So what was going on kind of prior to 2009 when you kind of made this transition to get into fitness?
Yeah, so 2009, I just recently had my little girl. She's getting older now, but she was born 2009, and I was always an athlete. Younger years, played football, stayed in shape. It just came easy. When I graduated high school, got out, started working, going to school. It just so happened that I just started getting a little heavier and heavier. And then once I had my little girl, 2009, it really the stress, the working, all of that just kind of compounded the results. And the next thing I know, I wake up and I'm 24, 25. I got high blood pressure. Doctor's telling me, trying to put me on blood pressure medication, trying to put me on cholesterol medication. I just wasn't living a healthy lifestyle. And when you have people counting on you, my wife, my little girl, you've got to get yourself better, because you're not in a good mental state. You're not when you're largely unhealthy, like I was. When I say I was 60 pounds overweight, I wasn't moving a lot at all. You're just not in the right mindset. You're just not in the mindset of waking up and just attacking what you're trying to do for your life. You're in a bad mood emotionally. You're in a bad mood physically, and you're just a terrible person to be around. You're not making anybody else happy because you're miserable. And that's kind of where I was at 2009, 2010. I was just unhappy, and I was making everybody else unhappy. And the people that were counting on me, I wasn't delivering 100%.
And so, can you talk to me a little bit about what your diet looked like leading up to this? Were you eating? Forgive me, I'm not very super familiar with the Texas kind of like stigmas as far as diets go, but If you go
Yeah.
down to the South, like North Carolina, South Carolina, everything is fried. Fried foods are really big. I know barbecue is really big in Texas, but I mean, if you think about it, barbecue's really not that bad. It's pork and brisket and chicken that they're smoking, so it's not fried. So what is there anything that's really kind of Texas stigma or Texas, unhealthy?
Yeah, well, I think everything's bigger in Texas, so the portions size, I think, what was getting me. It wasn't necessarily the food;
Okay.
it was I was eating more than I needed, and probably more often than I should have.
Okay, understood.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I wasn't eating salads. Don't get me wrong; I wasn't eating, but I was eating steaks, barbecue, some of it fried. I never really was a big fried food. I was never really a big sweet guy, but I
Hmm.
did eat my fast food. I would go out to eat quite a bit. So I think it was just eating bigger portions than probably I needed, and it just kept adding on.
Yeah, and I'm sure during that those college days in that younger life, you were grabbing what was probably readily available for one, and two, you were probably grabbing what was cheap, what you could afford, and where you could get the most like bang for your buck.
No, in college and then after college, when you're a young father with one income, you're trying to figure it out. So where do you cut back? Well, you cut back yourself. You're
Hmm.
not going to cut back the rest of the family. You're going to cut back yourself. And that should be kind of reversed because you're the one taking care of everybody else. You have to take care of yourself because you have to operate at 100%. But my mindset wasn't that. I was a young man trying to take care of my family. So uh, I made sure everybody else was good, and I would go get the dollar menu at McDonald's for lunch. And that was just part of it.
Yeah, there's actually there's a guy that I follow mostly on a lot of his stuff is on Facebook, but he's also on Instagram and everything as well. His name is Sean Whalen, and one of the big things that he kind of preaches out there is that you have to put your mask on first. So he uses the analogy of a plane going down, and when the plane's going down and the oxygen masks pop down, like you have to reach up and put your mask on first. If you don't put your mask on first, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. Like, yes, you might be able to help the person next to you, but that's about it. But if you have your mask on, you could then help so many more people. So you were kind of doing the reverse of that. You were making sure that everybody around you was taken care of, but unfortunately, your health was kind of suffering.
No, absolutely. And then you are also setting an example. You're setting an example for your family on how they should live. And if you're not living right, I promise you, your kids are looking at you saying, if when I started coaching, when I started running, my little girl got excited about it. My son gets excited about it. When I don't, they don't. So your family ebbs and flows with you. And when you realize that, then that means when you realize that, you really realize that, and you see that, means you start living right. You start living better because those habits you create, they're going to create the same habits.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it just kind of really ingrains those habits in them. And sometimes it's just a product of the environment. I just had Bobby Maximus on, and we were talking about his son. His son's name is Beans, and Beans has like been picking up things from around him, and I said, Bobby, like you haven't taught him any of these things. You haven't sat him down and said, okay, Beans, like here's this and this. So how do you think he's picked up on it? And he said this kid, like literally since the time he could walk, has been in a gym with me. He's been running around in the gym in his diaper, and he's just been exposed to this environment. So I think that he just picks things up that way. And so I think it's the same, and that's probably why your kids get excited about you coaching running, because you're excited about it, and you're passionate about it, you're loving it, so they can pick up on that. Kids are really, really good at picking up on things.
Yeah, definitely. When I was doing when I was training for the half Ironman, that's probably the most they seen their dad run because I'm not built for running,
Hmm.
but uh, it was good to see them, see that and think of dad like, look at him, he's out training. Look, and watching me go from, I went largely from not training at all to training a lot to doing a half Ironman very quickly, and them seeing me work towards my goals. I was happy to see them, and they were at the finish line, watching me complete it. So they watched me start it and finish it, and it was something I was very proud of for them to see.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, that's such a great feeling. I've had family at finish lines. I don't have any kids of my own, but I think that having your family there, I can only imagine, just that next level of your kids watching you, kind of, you know, and it teaches them the same. If you start this goal and do the work all along the way, like this is what you get. This, you get this great experience at the finish line and everything. So yeah, I think that that's got to be amazing.
No, absolutely. And I think this was my first real race to run. I didn't realize how important that person sitting at mile 45 with a sign with your name on it gives you that little extra energy to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
going.
yeah.
When you start getting in your own head, you start getting tired, your knee starts hurting, whatever it is. I never realized how important that was. So it really trying to change my mindset a little bit where I was more of an introvert. I was more of, um, not my thing. But once I was in the middle of it and I realized, man, that is important. It kind of changed my mindset on it.
And so, you kind of mentioned, your coaching there and stuff, and what you've been up to, and now obviously that's morphed into a whole fitness franchise, that you are owning, operating, and kind of growing. So, I want to get into how that started and how it went from having 5 clients and working in a park somewhere to now having this massive franchise that you're running. So can you start by kind of taking me through where your fitness went and how that kind of morphed into you also wanting to help others with their fitness?
Yeah, so we can really go back to when I started. When I started wanting to lose weight, there was a guy, my business partner now. He's the one who kind of led me towards the path of losing weight, showing me what to do. He's a retired Marine Corps pilot. He was head of PT down there in College Station. He's the one who kind of set me down. Was like, Robby, you got to get control of this. When I went to the doctor and had all these issues, I went to him and I said, hey man, you know this, can you help me out? He let me on a scale. I lost 60 pounds. I was feeling on top of the world. If I had to look back at a point in my life where kind of my life, the trajectory of my life started going up, it was that point when I lost all that weight. I was just operating on all cylinders. I was happy. I had more clarity than I ever had. Uh, and then when I felt that way, when I seen that, I wanted to give that to everybody else. I'm thinking, man, this is amazing. I feel amazing. I got more energy than I ever had. I'm happy. My wife's happy. My marriage is better. My whole life across the board is 100% better. And if that's the case, and all I really changed was my eating habits and exercise, and everything else followed, I want to give that to everybody else. So that's when I started printing out some flyers. I started a Facebook page. I thought, man, who wouldn't want to sign up for this thing? I put it in the local park, and I ended up having to beg my mom and my cousin. I was like, hey, y'all come up here so I don't be the crazy guy in the park with some weights, like so it looks like I have some customers. So they show up, and luckily 3 other people showed up, and that was my first boot camp class that I actually delivered. It was 5 people. It was a 4-week boot camp, but it solidified like the love and the passion I had for it. Like I really enjoyed that part of it, just helping people. And I've always been an entrepreneur. I always wanted to start my own business. I was working. I was actually in the engineering field. I was making 6 figures, and I would coach boot camp classes before and after work, and people would laugh at me like, "What are you doing?" I had a career that a lot of people would love to have, but still there was something inside of me that wanted to be to help as many people as possibly could, but also kind of work that entrepreneur spirit of myself in.
And so you put it out there on Facebook, and you put a couple flyers out there. You have no idea who's gonna show up to this, if anybody at all was gonna show up to us.
No, absolutely.
And was there, were you charging for it at the time, or were you just doing this purely out of passion?
No, I charged. I think I charged $100, $99
for the 4 weeks.
For the 4 weeks. Yes,
okay,
sir.
okay. And so you get a couple people that show up, and at this time was you had a Facebook group that was set up, but aside from that, I'm assuming Facebook wasn't what it is kind of today, and the animal that it is today. So were you taking any pictures and doing anything like that to kind of then push it out a little bit more on Facebook?
Yeah, and I wish I would have. Back then, I was in my hometown. I was 26. I was honestly scared to do that. and so this is to all the young entrepreneurs out there. I didn't capture much of the early days for myself because it was more of internal. What are people going to think about me at 26 in my hometown trying to do this in the park? So
Mm-hmm.
there was this clash inside of me of wanting to do better for the business, but also scared and worried about what the outside world thought of me at that time. So I took some pictures and I did, but I also just grew off word of mouth back then. It was just those three people brought three more people, and then through messaging people, putting stuff out there on Facebook, people had messaged me. So
And now, what are like I guess, the legalities of running a boot camp in a public park? So you are, establishing this class, and you have people who are coming there, and they're paying you. Were you paying the park at all? And how does that work out? And did you actually end up getting in trouble ever?
no, I mean, I think there's certain areas that are pretty strict on it. The park never asked me to pay them. I never heard anything from the city. Um, so if you're listening to this, you might want to check with your local authorities. But I was more of just, ask for forgiveness later if something ever happened. That's kind of the way I looked at it. I just took action. I think a lot of us pause and we don't take the next step because we're worried about what could happen. And if I would have did that, maybe there was a law against it. I'm not sure. Maybe there was a city ordinance against it. I'm not sure, but it never came up. And I was able to train in the park, and open my first location before anything came up out of it.
So, if now you're doing this, purely kind of out of your passion. I would assume that, especially at such a young age, 26 years old, making six figures. It wasn't for the money. You weren't doing it for the money. But when you started your class for the first time, did you ever have an initial thought about leaving your engineering job, or was this purely it was your escape from your 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, whatever it was that you were working? It was something that you were purely passionate about, and it was just something that you really enjoyed doing, and you were just going to leave it at that.
No, I always, so me and my business partner is my best friend. Me and him would always talk about what we would do. We're going to quit. We're going to start a business. We're going to quit our job. So it was always a dream of mine. I just didn't, where I was at, I didn't think it was going to be in fitness. I put it that way. But it was something that was always in the back burner of my head. I always knew what it would take. This is how much money I had to make when I hit this point. This is how much money I'd make at this point. Luckily for me, it was something I was passionate about too. I think that's where a lot of us get it wrong, where we just try to chase the money and we never end up catching it. But when you do something that you really love, the money kind of follows with it. I know it's kind of cliche, you hear it all the time, but it's really true. Um, but yes, it was something that was always in the back of my head. I mean, I thought Delta Life Fitness, we were going to be the brand that was next to the big brands in the industry, the Orange Theories, and Orange Theory wasn't really on that radar back then, but the Fit Body boot camps like Bedros Keuilian and those guys, like I was looking at those guys thinking I could do that. Greg Glassman and CrossFit,
Yeah,
those guys.
yeah, yeah. Talk about somebody who does not look like they are in fitness. That guy doesn't look like he's ever set foot in a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, well, I think he was back in, I think he was an athlete back in the day, and
Okay.
he was, yeah, he's able to get those guys, those CrossFit. I mean, he's obviously a very intelligent guy. He
Mm-hmm.
created, he, uh, he created something that I don't know if it will ever be recreated again. That movement of that CrossFit movement, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, it's a very, I mean, CrossFit's a very polarizing subject, and I try not to poke that bear too much on the podcast. I mean, I've had CrossFit athletes on, and I've had other gym owners on, and I've put it out there before. I'm not here to bash anybody. I'm not here to bash any sort of diet or anything. But I will say that guy, he's smart. He's really, really smart, and that was a wave that really took over the nation when it first launched. And if for nothing else, he's a very smart business guy. That's for sure. That's for
No,
sure.
yeah, I mean, he was able to and they really know who they're going for. If
Hmm.
they build athletes, they created the CrossFit Games. It's really important to when you start a fitness business, especially a fitness business, understand who your client is. Delta Life Fitness, what we do, we're women's only, so we're women centric. We go for your busy multitasking mom. So our three uniques in ours, we're a 30-minute workout. We're built for women. So when you walk into our studio, it's very built for a woman, a spa feel, what they want. And then we have childcare. We know our clients have children, and it's hard for them to find a place to work out. So we have children. And the same thing with CrossFit. CrossFit knew who their athletes were, knew who they were trying to train, and they built a program for that. So us and CrossFit are really two different products going after two different customers.
Right. Absolutely. And that's interesting that you say that because, obviously you dropped a couple names there of people that you've been following, especially in the fitness space, and especially Bedros Keuilian and some of these other guys. And that's something that they preach, is that you have to know who your ideal customer is.
No, absolutely. And Bedros is kind of the one that we heard niche. He was kind of the first one that I really started hearing niche because we were kind of training anybody and everybody. If you'd give us money, we'd take you in. And I understand as a fitness professional, that's what you want to do. You want to help people, but you're just because you go niche don't mean you're not going to overlap in other demographics. We go for a very specific woman in our marketing, but we do get other avenues of ladies coming in. Some people that are very in shape, some people that are very overweight, some people that are looking for different goals. But we know what we're going for and who we're going for, and our marketing says that.
So, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I do want to hear about how you went from the park and your first 5 clients to then being ready to have a retail space or a gym space for you to train these particular clients.
Yeah, so the story of Delta Life and how we ended up, now we're at a 30-unit franchise. We're in multiple states. We're growing. There's really a group of us. So I got a business partner, and then it's our wives that kind of are in the side of the business right now. Where we kind of sit now, kind of give you a wave top view, is me and my business partner. We deal more with the franchising now, more of the business growth, and our wives really deal with the programming, building the workouts because it is built for women. It needs that woman's touch on it. What they know what they want. I don't. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can ask my wife. It's hard to. I've been married to her for 10 years. We've been together for 17 years. So, um, I'm still trying to figure out what she wants. But that's my joke. I know it wasn't too funny, but so how we started from 5, I opened my first location, the first location from the park. It was very rough. It was we call it the deer stand office. It was like 4 pieces of plywood in the corner as an office. I had no rubber flooring. It was kind of a warehouse filled gym that I put a little bit of money in to see if I could make it work. Opened it in November, and I don't know if you ever opened a gym in November, but it's terrible. The fitness industry in November, December. It's just a rough time for us. It picks up a little bit in December, but it's just a rough time. And then so that was 2014. I ran a 2-week free offer, me and my business partner, on Facebook. And so I got off work. I drove to the parking lot. I had 50 people in my parking space, like my parking lot, and my wife was 4 months pregnant with our youngest son, and people were just handing her money over like we didn't have any systems, we didn't understand it, and that's kind of the moment I realized, like, hey, we can probably make this work. And then so we went from there. Then my business partner came down. He seen what I was doing. Then he moved to Florida because he was going to flight school, and him and his wife opened a location there in Florida. And we just kind of from there, me and him would be communicating like, hey, I think we can systemize this. I think we can do this. And we started building a franchise from there. Really a license. We didn't franchise till later on, but that's how the foundation started.
And so while he's over in Florida, and you two are communicating back and forth, did either of you have experience in business?
Um, Absolutely not.
Okay.
We one thing I can recommend, and I think it fast forwarded us 15 years, is we went and got a coach. We went and got we used MPE, Net Profit Explosion. They're a fitness business coaching platform. They work with fitness entrepreneurs, help them build systems, help them build their business out. And there's nothing that's black and white, but they gave us a map. And through that map, we were able to build our systems out, and especially early on. And I think their coaching and their mentorship moved us to the next level for sure.
That's interesting that one, that you found them, and kind of two, that you've utilized them, and are recommending them. A lot of people, and I think it's maybe stubbornness at first, but a lot of people don't want to hire a coach. They really want to do it on their own, and sometimes they wait a little bit too long before they make that decision to hire the coach. So how early on was it that you discovered this group and kind of decided to bring them on?
So we brought them on in 2015. So early 2015,
Okay.
late 2014, somewhere around there. We started signing licenses. We started signing people up as licensed. So we opened our first license in middle of 2014, and we had about 4 locations, and me and him both had full-time jobs. So we just
Right.
everything we made from the gyms, we dumped back into the business. We dumped back into the business. We never took any money out of it. We just dumped everything we made back into it. So that was easier to get coaching because we didn't need to live off the business, if that made
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent. If you're working full time right now, if you can utilize your time before and after work to build your business and then take that money instead of trying to starve the business, take that money and dump it back into the business, I think you're able to build something quicker. Instead of, hey, I got the side hustle, I'm going to take money out of it, we're going to go on vacation, and the side hustle is always going to be there. If you're looking to build a business, you're going to have to put money back into it. You're going to have to feed it.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. But there are some people who are just looking to have a side hustle, just to have a side hustle and be able to take that extra
Yeah,
vacation. So I think it's a matter of determining what you really want to do.
exactly. Our goal was to build the best fitness franchise. Even at that point, our goal was to build the best fitness franchise. So we're going to spend all of our money into how to do that. And we found MP early 2015, maybe late 2014, somewhere in that time frame. And we started working with those guys they came in. We built systems around how to sell clients. We built systems around how to market and different things like that. And when you bring coaching in, when you bring years of experience in, on the job training is probably the best because you see so much. It's you can go to school and get an MBA, but when you're in there actually running a small business, when the buck stops with you, when you're the last line of defense, when you're the firefighter, you learn so much because you got to understand every aspect of the business, not just the balance sheet, not just profit and loss. You got to understand from the ground up everything about the business. So you get an education like that.
Now, when the buck stops with you, Robby, how did that affect your full-time job when you were trying to build this? Because you can't be, I'm assuming you can't be fielding phone calls about a toilet not working over at your gym, when you're supposed to be working this full-time job. That's, it's a big job. You're not just somebody who's kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, so no, and my job did suffer. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't something I'm proud to say. But at a certain point, I realized, hey, this could probably be what I wanted to do. I had more passion about this than my job. So I just went towards that. But also, I think that helped with the coaching. When you bring people in, they hold you accountable. They hold you accountable to say, what can you do? What can't you do? What you need to hand off. So you start hiring managers. You start hiring people internally. I had a supporting spouse that helped me out a lot with that. Uh, I had a team around me. I had a business partner that helped me on the bigger end, and on the personal end, my wife's jumped in and helped me out. I had the luxury of having a job that I could leave if I needed to sometimes. So I had some advantages that most people probably wouldn't in that opportunity. That was able to help me out. But my job did struggle. But I quit my full time job September 2015. So at this point, I was kind of fast tracking that path.
So, all right, I want to come back to that, because that's big right there. But I do want to ask you a question, kind of also as you were establishing your team and putting these people in place. Talk to me about I guess I don't want to necessarily say the difficulties of hiring somebody, but I do feel like for people who are entrepreneurs and people who are starting their business like you did, I would have to imagine that it has to be difficult to hand off a task and give it to somebody and kind of let a little bit go, like let it go and have somebody else handle it, for one. But for two, your expectations about how it needs to be done have to be so high because you want it done to the same standard as when you were doing it. So, did you have any difficulties with A, giving up a task to somebody, and B, having it done exactly the way that you wanted it to be done?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of coaching. We would get on a coaching call and they would say, "Hey, Rob, you need to hire somebody out and you need to have them, you need to start doing this stuff." So they would hold me accountable on that. Um, Early on as an entrepreneur or business owner, you have this in your head that, hey, these people need to care as much as I do about the job I pay them. The fact of it is that they're not, and you have to be okay with that. But early on, it definitely was. And I think more the struggle, probably especially for early entrepreneurs, is that we don't have everything figured out. We don't have it really laid out. So the expectations that I had and what they had on the job were different. And it definitely was a struggle early on of trying to figure out how to do that. People got mad at me. I got mad at them. I did have to go through a couple of managers to figure that workflow out on that communication, that expectation of that position. And I think to help anybody out that's looking to hire somebody, that's looking to get there, it would be one, what is your expectation of the job? What is your key performance indicators, your KPIs you're going to be measuring that job on? How do they hit those KPIs? What's their number one task? What's their number one thing they need to achieve on that job? Those things are important to be able to express to that person, so they understand how to get there, how to be successful in the job. And definitely early on, I didn't have any of that. So it was a big struggle on that. It wasn't necessarily for me, I had so much going on. So me bringing somebody on and giving them something, I was like, thank you, because
Mm-hmm.
I was only able to get to it 50% of the time. Now this person gets to 100% of the time. The biggest problem was the communication on, this is how you need to do it. This is what you need to do. This is most important, because everybody, my biggest weakness is I assume everybody sees the world like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my biggest weakness, and I'm very self-aware of that. So I would just hand somebody something and say, "Okay, take care of it," and they would do the complete opposite, or they wouldn't see the importance of it, and I would get very frustrated. But I didn't communicate that with them. How am I going to expect them to understand that?
And it seems like you, from the very, very beginning, especially when you launched a location over in Florida with your business partner, and just from the very start, you were very process oriented. And so it seems like you have, a process in place for everything. So, when you bring somebody on, you have a process to say, okay, this is what your job is, and this is what we need you to accomplish, and this is kind of how you can go about accomplishing it. And, I feel like it probably, and this is an assumption on my part, but if somebody said, like, if they put their own spin on how to get something done, I don't think that you would be mad or upset about it, but I think you also have processes in place that are really going to help people be successful in the jobs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in building processes in a business, it's kind of, I know, like when we're building a business or when we're doing anything, we want it to be 100% right now. And where we're at right now was 100% of just doing things the wrong way and realizing, well, that wasn't right. Let's document the right way. Or, I figured this thing out. So a lot of times it was employees helping me out. It was business partners helping us out. It was coaches helping us out. It was a lot of trial and error, and we made a lot of mistakes. We spent a lot of money we shouldn't have. We made people upset along the way. Uh, but it was just, when you're trying to build something, it's just part of it. And you're going to put the minimal viable product out there, and then you're going to have to pivot and make it better, and then pivot and make it better, get feedback and make it better. And even with the processes, I'm going to have to put it out there. Okay, well, we dropped the ball here. And instead of getting upset like most people would, like, why didn't you do it? Say, why didn't we do it? Look at it a different way and say, why didn't we do it? What can we do to ensure that we don't miss that again? And that's been a big growth in our business, especially early on, of not ever getting upset with partner wise, not getting upset with employees, just figuring out why did they miss it and how do we fix it. And that kind of built the processes for us.
So in 2014, you open up your first gym, and it was really this like warehouse style, gym. But in 2015, you're already considering leaving your full time job. So
Yes.
what was going on there, and what was going on at the gym? Because you were not pulling a salary from the gym; you were dumping everything back into the gym. So you have, a very good salary coming from your full time job, and you're already considering, this is like a year in, you're already considering leaving this full time job to go full time for the gym. So, I mean, you got to talk to me about what was going on there.
I think I kind of go back to the coaching part of it. We were probably at five licensed units. I had one I had one location myself, and I didn't really ever think about leaving my job at that point. But my business partner was in Florida. He was a Marine Corps pilot, and he was getting orders to move. And just so happened down there where he was at, we had a couple employees, and we kind of had some things going on the headquarters level. We hit a lot of growth. And then I was in Beaumont. I was working full time, and then I had my gym, and we flew out to San Diego for a business mastermind. And if your viewers are familiar with mastermind, you just kind of bring some business owners in, and you kind of just talk about your issues you're having in your business. It's a very if you're a young entrepreneur, if you're thinking about opening a business, find a business mastermind locally. It really helps you out a lot. So happened that we were going to move up a level in the coaching platform. We were going to go to the CEO of the company. He was going to personally coach us. We hit max amount growth. He was wanting to work with us one on one. So the first time I met the guy, I sat down with him, and we were having breakfast, and we laid out everything we had going on with us. Josh is moving to my business partner is moving to California. I'm in Texas. We have some people in Florida. But I'm going to try to run it from Texas and keep working my job. And he said, "Hey, Robby, if you're going to make this work, you need to move." And I said, "Okay." Just like that. And I called my wife up and I said, "Hey, baby, we're moving to Florida. I know we were about to build a house. We had all this stuff going on down home. Kids were in school." I said, "Hey, Sean said if we're going to make it work, I got to move to Florida." She agreed. 2 weeks later, pulled the kids out of school. We had a U-Haul, and I was moving to Florida on a not really a big plan, not really knowing how I was going to replace my salary. I just knew I was very passionate about what we were doing, and I wanted to make it work. And if that's what needed to make it work, that's what I was willing to do. And me and my wife jumped feet first, and here we are.
So, I mean, like, no, and it amazes me and it doesn't amaze me at the same time, because if you are that passionate about something, like you just said, the CEO says, "Listen, if y'all are going to do this, really do this, you got to move." And you didn't even think about it. Like, it wasn't even like a question of, "Oh, okay, should we do this?" Like, "Oh, the kid," like, you're like, "Okay, got it. Roger that. We're out." So, but at the same time, the other side of my brain is like, okay, like how do you go about doing that? Like 2 weeks later, you're moving to Florida in a U-Haul. Like, how did you find a house? Like, how did you how did you just make it all work? But I feel like at the same time, when you go back to that first person who just went for it, you have faith that you're just going to figure it out, So I think it comes down to how much are you willing to kind of just figure things out on the fly? Like, are you willing to put all your shit in a U-Haul and drive to Florida and figure it out? Like, figure it out as you're driving there.
No, absolutely, and that's kind of me and my wife. I'm conservative. I'm a saver. I like that stuff. So it was very outside my normal of doing things, normal operations of doing things personally. But it was something that I looked at. I got two young kids, and one day they're going to come to me with some crazy dream. They're going to want to be an actor or a singer or God knows whatever it is. And I don't know if this is going to work out or not. And I didn't when I left, for sure. But I know if they ever came to me and told me that, I can sit them down and say, "You know what your dad did? I did this. And you need to go chase your dreams as hard as I chased mine." And that's what I want to be able to tell them. And I felt if I didn't do that, if I did sit down with them, I'd have been basically a liar and telling them to do it when I wasn't man enough to do it myself. I mean, people called me crazy. People said, "What are you doing?" But I always realized that, I could always go back to work. But this opportunity I have in front of me maybe only happened once in my lifetime. So I've got to take the opportunity and I've got to jump on it. And I've got to see what I can do with it. And that was kind of my mental state at the time.
Yeah, I'm sure you could always find a job in
Yeah.
engineering. Like
Well, I
there's
mean, even if I could go back to work managing a Starbucks. I mean, it don't matter.
right.
I could support my family if I had to. I'm a smart enough guy to understand that, to do that. Uh, but like I said, this could only come one time in my lifetime. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I wanted to take it. I mean, was it scary? Yeah, it was scary. Me and my wife were petrified. What are we going to do? I mean, we've been getting this paycheck every week, and now all of a sudden tomorrow it stops, and now we got to make it ourselves. Yeah, it was very scary, but uh, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I'm happier than I ever have been now. We're growing the business, so it was definitely the right move. But at the time, it was definitely scary.
And I just wanted to also kind of add to that you mentioned that you were very conservative, and this was something that was very, very outside the box for you, and something that was not, I guess, quote unquote normal for you. But I think that speaks to how passionate you were about this, and how much you believed in it, and how much you knew that it was going to work, or at least how much faith you had in it working,
No, absolutely. It was faith. I mean, everybody that's out there running a business, there's highs and lows, and there's no overnight successes. There's no, hey, it was easy, it just happened. There's no one thing that makes you successful. But it was definitely at the start of it. It made us against the world type mentality. It made that we have to figure this out. We have to do it. There's no turning back. So it definitely kicked it up a notch for us.
Now, from the start of your park classes to your first gym to then having a business partner in Florida and everything, when did the decision to become women only come into place, and why women only?
So we went to women only probably middle of 2014, and
Okay.
we looked at the group fitness landscape, especially within internally with us, and it was 95% ladies, and we jumped into that aspect of it, saying that we can actually build a product that they want. When you're trying to teach them how to do snatches or weightlifting and they're rolling their eyes because they don't want that, you realize that, well, I have a certain customer here that I need to make sure that they enjoy the workout, they enjoy what they're doing here. So I have to build it for them. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off.
And so then you continued on with just the women only, and has there ever been a point in time where you've considered stepping back and then having a men's and women's gym, or that this is the service you're providing and this is what you're going to stick with, and it's been successful, and this is what you're going to go with?
Yeah, well, I think in the fitness industry as a whole, I think the more specialized you can get, the better. I think specialization's only going to get more and more um, granular. It just is. You go from you've got kickboxing as a franchise standalone. You have yoga. You have Orange Theory, which just does a certain type of workout that's very niche. So it's just only going to get more and more. I think if anything, I would come out with a model that's geared towards young men or middle-aged men, and build a product for them before I would ever try to add it in my product.
Mm-hmm.
We are women's only. That's our uniques. That's what our customers. That's what our facilities are built for. I don't. If I'm starting a studio or running a studio right now, I'm looking at the landscape and saying, well, who am I serving? What part? It can be men and women. Don't look at women's only as I am going niche if you're listening to this, but you need to look at your landscape and say, who am I serving? Am I building athletes? Am I serving stay-at-home moms? Am I serving middle-aged men that have kids? who is this built for, and really go all in on that part of it. I think when you do that, when you see that, it helped us. It made us hit that hockey stick curve where we started growing tremendously.
Yeah, and so how early on did this idea of franchising and licensing come in? Because I think that, it seems like, and I have watched Shark Tank, a bunch of times, and obviously I'm very interested in the entrepreneurial side of everything. So where does that come in? And that now, that brings on a whole nother can of worms, so to speak, for you guys, because then you now have to figure out the pricing for that and how everything's going to work. And, are we going to come in and set up the gym so that they all look exactly the same? Like Orange Theory, for instance. You walk into an Orange Theory here in, Delaware or Pennsylvania or Florida, they all look exactly the same. It's all orange lights. It's all the same treadmills. It's all the same rowers. Like everything's the same. So how early on did that idea kind of come into play, and when did you start entertaining how that would work?
No, great question. And we started off as a license, so we were just selling units. And you start off with friends and family. You think you're the only one. All these issues that we ran into trying to franchise. You think you're the only one. We just went to the IFA a couple years ago as the International Franchise Association, and we realized that, hey, we're not alone. Everybody goes through it. So we started off with friends and family, and then coaches inside the gym. They started licensing, and then we went to IFA one year, and we were still licensed, and we started hearing about these franchises. I've always been infatuated with the franchise business. I've always been infatuated with business, and looking at Ray Kroc, hearing his story, watching. I know you probably watched The Founder, the movie about Ray Kroc.
No, actually, I haven't.
So it's basically the showing the franchise industry and how it created. He created McDonald's, Ray Kroc did, and he kind of shows him meeting the McDonald brothers and saying, "Hey, let's franchise this thing." So when you start a franchise, what we all have, the main thing we have is the brand, and we want to protect the brand. So the big license you can see in our industry is CrossFit, and CrossFit, you go into one CrossFit or you go into the other, it's totally different. They can do their own things. If that was our goal, we would have stayed a license. But our goal was more about how can we better support the person that's buying our gym. They're buying our gym, and they want to be an entrepreneur, but they want the roadmap of how to be successful, and we have that roadmap. And if you're going to jump in there and dive in with somebody and help them with operationally, help them with marketing, if you're going to take more than a certain amount of money a year from them, you're basically a franchise. So we realized that for us to be successful and our vision to happen, we had to go from a license to a franchise. And that was kind of the moment that we realized we can better support our customers and make sure they're successful and help them be successful being a franchise other than a license.
And was the decision to go this way because you could open and grow to more locations faster?
Franchise was actually slower growth,
okay.
But the asset in the long run is a lot better. What I mean by that is when you have every unit looking the same, operating the same, successful, that asset that you're growing yourself is a lot better. That business is a lot stronger. But it's a lot slower because, like you said, when somebody signs up with us, they have to, usually we're on the SBA registry list, so you can go to SBA and get funding. That's a 3 to 4 month process. And then the build out itself, we help them find the architect. We have a set of drawings that already has every fixture called out that they use. We go in and help them with the construction, make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be. We come in and train them. We come in and work with them over the first 3 months. This process, when you start a gym with us, it's a long process. But at the end of the day, you're building the roadmap to success, I guess you can say.
And you're also helping with a lot of the mistakes that people could potentially make in the very beginning as well. You're kind of eliminating a lot of that. And you're eliminating should we get, even down to like the equipment. Oh, should we get this brand or should we get this brand or should we get this, style or that style? Like you guys have handled all of that already. So I'm sure it makes it probably easier for them.
Well, they can kind of worry about what matters, and what matters is getting customers. We want them to start getting customers 60 days out. Start getting people signed up. Start drawing awareness. Like we want you to worry about growing your business because being a gym operator is not about, a lot of times in the gym business, you see a trainer that really loves a business and they jump in and they say, I want to own a business. It's really two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Training a client and running a business is two different things. Now, and that's why you see a lot of people go in and say, man, I love training people. I want to open a business. And they realize, man, this is not what I signed up for. I'm not really training anybody anymore. I'm dealing with all these other things. So we want to make sure that when somebody comes and buys a gym, we really don't even look for somebody that's necessarily a strong fitness person because we give them the workouts already created.
So that actually leads to, it's funny that you said that because that was a question that I was thinking of in my head right now. Do you miss training clients? Because I'm sure that you are probably not doing that anymore. You're not coaching anymore. So, and that's how this whole thing started. It all started from Robby training 5 clients in a park. Like, do you miss that?
Well, do I miss the camaraderie that creates? Yes, but I find that in other areas when franchisees come on board and I get to work with them. If you think about how many people could Robby and my business partner Josh and his wife Kristen and my wife Cassie, how many people we can actually help training one-on-one, it's not a lot. But if we can create what we're creating now, and then this can go into another town, we can eventually our goal is to be helping 1 million people by 2028. That's a big goal. That's a lot of people. And the only way I could do that was be able to take what's in our head, put it down, and able to give it to somebody else so they can go be successful. And so do I miss it? On the point, I miss the camaraderie, the friendships, the relationships you create, but I get a lot of fulfillment out of seeing somebody come and buy our brand, walk them through the whole process, and at the end of it, start helping hundreds and hundreds of people in their community. That gives me just as much fulfillment, but I do miss a part of it. Absolutely.
Well, and on the flip side of it, the other thing is that when you were coaching fitness classes in the park, because it was something that you were very, very passionate about and you wanted to share that passion with other people. And now when you get to sit down with, potential franchisees who want to come on and open their own franchise, you are coaching them and helping them open this franchise, and you're still sharing something that you're passionate about with them. So that maintains itself all the way through. It's just kind of shifted what you're sharing your passion about.
No, absolutely. And that's a great way to put it because, we are passionate about the brand. It is something that both of our families have poured our life into. And we wouldn't have done it if we didn't believe in it.
So now, where do you sit? Right now, I'm assuming that you are, now back in Texas because there's a little bit of a time difference between us. So, when did you move back over that way?
So we moved back into Houston, Texas. We live in the Woodlands now. We last year, about a year and a half ago, we moved back to Texas. We just wanted to get to one back home. Me and my business partner are both from the Texas area. We have family in a little town in Beaumont, Texas, outside Houston. And we also wanted somewhere people could fly into once the brand starts growing. People are going to want to come see it. A hub. Me and him are always big thinkers and dreamers. So we always looked ahead and be like, man, when we get to so many units, people are going to want to fly in and look at the corporate unit. So that's why we kind of moved back to Houston. And really, if you look at brands usually get created in the East and West Coast. They just do. Orange Theory down in Florida. You got a bunch of California, New York. This creates brands. There's not a lot of brands that come from the South. We're two Southern guys. I think we could have a good opportunity of really concentrating on the South, especially with the fitness model and what we're trying to do, and really grab a good part of the market share because we're usually the last to get brands. We're never the first. We're just now, you're starting to see Orange Theories pop up everywhere. You're starting to see all these fitness that come from the East and West Coast. So, but if we can centralize here and kind of grow out, it's a little different growth thought process, but I think we can grab market share and we can get our units out faster down here in the South than we can trying to battle the California or the East Coast and the West Coast crowd.
Yeah, because it's packed. It's packed. Robby, you should see how many Orange Theories have popped up in the area where I am right now over the course of the last year. It's insane. Without even actually really thinking about it, I have at least 5 that I could rattle off. At least 5.
And that's crazy, ain't it? And that's even more. That's even where you have to be more specialized in this industry because you have to break through that noise. When where you're at, you have 5 Orange Theories, but you have probably 100, at least 20 to 30 different fitness models around you.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And how am I going to break through that noise on Facebook? How am I going to break through that noise? Only way I can do that is when somebody looks at it and says, that's for me. And that's why you have to be niche. And that's why you have to start niche and then use the word of mouth, use different avenues to get everybody else. But you have to, why choose Orange Theory over if I'm a 33-year-old father of two that's married, and if you built a product for me and says, "Hey, Rob, or do you hate having a dad bod?" and are you looking for something that's not competition based, where you can come in and get a great workout in 30 minutes or less because you're a busy dad? I'd be like, man, you're talking right to me.
Right.
Am I more likely to come to that, or am I more likely to go to, hey, we train everybody. If you're ready to get in shape, come here. Who am I going to go to?
Right. Right. Right.
I'm going to go to that one that's calling directly for me. And with Facebook and Instagram, where you can start pulling different aspects of people out, where you can market just to this section of people. I mean, your marketing dollar goes so far right now if you know who your customer is.
Yeah, if you can identify your ideal customer, even in just that little brief example, like you had age, everything, and then like throw in his income based on what you charge for classes. Like this is the income, this is the household income that we're targeting. Like if you have your ideal customer in your head already, man, I'll tell you, you talk about getting a bang for your buck. Like Facebook ads are the way to go versus any of this other more traditional forms, which it's hilarious that we still call that traditional forms, but
I know.
like you know I can't even imagine the like even the fact that people still use radio as advertising or billboards. Like billboards crack me up. They crack me up. Like who the heck is, because they still charge this crazy amount of money for the billboards, and they still charge crazy amounts of money for radio. And it's just like you can get so much more for your dollar elsewhere. It's funny.
No, and don't go into your gym tomorrow and start telling people, hey, we're only training 30-year-old dads. Test that on the internet. Like with Facebook marketing, you can put $100 and say, what was my click-through rate? What was my cost per lead doing the ad like this? I mean, there's so much power out of it right now that, if you go home and look at YouTube and understand first thing you got to do is understand how to do it.
Yeah.
Go on YouTube. You can learn anything right now off YouTube. Go to YouTube, understand how to run your first Facebook ad, and go run it and test it. That's how we built the foundation of our business, was early Facebook ads where we were just running a sales page out to everybody. And people weren't even coming in and buying a membership. They were just buying it off Facebook. I would sit at work and emails would just come in. People are buying the 28-day challenge from me. Now it's harder to do that now. That was early 2014, but you can still, through landing pages, through lead pages, still be able to get somebody's name, number, and email. And how much does that cost you? And then follow up, call them, and then call them again and try to schedule in for a class. I mean, try to set them to come in for a class. I mean, the main thing for the business right now is set, shows, and conversions. How many people can I set for an appointment? How many actually show up that I set the appointment for, and then how many convert? Those are the three big numbers right now if you're running a gym business right now that you need to be paying attention to. Okay? Your salesperson, y'all need to be sets, shows, and conversions. Work those three things. And then with those three numbers, just those three numbers, eventually you're going to be wanting to know what your retention is. So what are cancellations? And then if I can reverse those cancellations. But right now, if you're a young business owner, sets, shows, and conversions. Pay attention to those three numbers. Spend a little money. See if you can get an email and a phone number. See if you can set them for an appointment. If you set them, do they show up? If they show up, can you convert them? You track those, you can really take your business to the next level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for just like getting into that a little bit there. I'm sure that, and guess what?
Sorry about that.
No need to apologize at all. And I think that's the same kind of, depending on what your business is per se, but I think that's kind of the same across multiple different styles of businesses. It would be the same as to get people's information, get them to see your product, and then, convert them to potentially purchase.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's the same all the way across. And so I do want to ask you, as part of kind of this podcast, and really get the chance to ask everyone because of time constraints and stuff sometimes. But it's the Do It For Yourself podcast, and the reason it is called that is because people are doing something for themselves, and it's not in a selfish way. It's because they are doing something that they've always wanted to, something that they are very passionate about now. And maybe that passion grew and it was something that they were curious about, but it grew into a passion. Or maybe it was something that they were kind of half forced into. And it was something that, grew into this huge passion. So, like with your example, having this passion for fitness, and you started your fitness, and the passion kind of grew as your fitness grew. What would you say to the person who they're stuck in that kind of analysis paralysis stage? They are really just overthinking everything, and they're trying to think about every little aspect, and they haven't taken that first step yet. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in fitness. It doesn't necessarily have to be in business. It can be in whatever it is that they want to start and be passionate about, but they are just really overthinking it right now, and they aren't ready to pick up and pack their U-Haul and move to Florida. Like, what do you have to say to that person who is listening?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, you're not doing it for a reason. So you got to figure out, what is that reason? Are you worried about what your mom thinks? You're worried about what your friends think? What is that reason why you're not doing it? And then realize at the end of the day, it don't matter. What I mean by that is, live your life the way. I know it sounds cliche, but right now we're all worried about something. We don't put that piece of content out on Facebook because we're worried about what somebody's going to say on it. We don't want to go coach boot camps in the park because we're worried about what our friends we graduate in high school would think about. And then we realize once we start doing it, it don't matter. So really just figure out why it is you're not doing it, and then start. I mean, 2019 is about to happen. We're about to hit the new year. Everybody has that idea. If it's that fitness goal, if it's that starting a business, if it's starting a podcast, if it's whatever it is, take the first steps. Take baby steps. Start putting some stuff out there. But don't be worried about what people think, man. Live your life the way you want to live it, because you're going to be a lot happier if you do. And that's what I want to leave everybody with. We're not doing it for a reason, but don't let it be about what other people think, because that stopped me for the longest.
That's awesome. I really, really appreciate that. And I think that the listeners are also going to appreciate that as well. So, Robby, I just want to say, thank you so much for not only reaching out, but also for making the time to come on the podcast. I can only imagine how busy you guys are, right now with trying to grow this to what you want to grow it to. And so I just want to say thanks for coming on, and thanks for reaching out. And I really appreciate the time that you gave for us.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you having me on.
All right, my friends. That is my interview with Robby Marlow. What did you think of Robby's story? Did you enjoy it? Did it resonate with you? Was there anything that really hit home for you? Do me a favor, reach out to Robby, let him know what you thought of the podcast, and send me a message and let me know what you thought of the podcast. I really, really love when I get to hear from so many of you after these episodes get posted, and you share your thoughts with me. You let me know what you think of the episodes, how things went, what you think of me when I make an idiot of myself, which happens from time to time, we'll say. So I just want to thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with Robby and I for about an hour this week. We really enjoyed having you here, and I'm not just saying that, because we're together through this wonderful thing called a podcast, but I do really enjoy spending this time with you, although we are not face to face. It's fun to really share these interviews and share these stories with you, and then we get to connect after the fact and talk about the things that we really enjoyed from each interview. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Again, if you want to support the show, we have the Patreon as an option, and the best way for you to really support this show would be to take 2 minutes and leave me a review on the Apple Podcast app or wherever you are downloading these podcasts from. That would really help with the reach in the show and iTunes and Apple algorithms and everything else. So thank you so much in advance. Next week's episode is going to be absolutely amazing. It is definitely a first here on the Do It For Yourself podcast. It is not someone who is building a business per se like Robby was today. It is not someone who has a weight loss journey or any sort of athletic endeavors. Next week, I have a mentalist on the show who is using his mentalist skills in ways that I did not even know were possible. So I'm really excited to share that one with you. But until next week, I hope you have an enjoyable week, and I will talk to you then.